Hi, I'm Dr. Cher, and today I'm going to talk to you about an amazing article I just read. It was actually sent to me, and in this article written by Gary Taubes, and I've actually read his book 10 years ago, and recently, and his book is called Why We Get Fat. Not the nicest title in the world, but fascinating book, looking at the historical research that's been done around weight loss and obesity. And in this article, he's kind of recounting some of the things from his book, but recently they had several scientists that published an article in September in the Journal of Clinical Nutrition. And so this article that I was reading was a summary of the one in the actual journal. And in particular, what I loved about it, and I think this is very relevant to a lot of people, is he's talking about sort of the dogma around weight loss and the dogma around the lens that's looked at from a research perspective around the theory of weight loss or things that contribute to gaining weight. It's about, as they call it, energy imbalance, meaning there's more calories coming in than calories going out. Calories are really a measure of energy. Like when you break down the food or when the body's burning energy, that's kind of the unit is an energetic thing. So this dogma, everything that's looked at often in North America in particular is calorie in, calorie out. That's kind of it. We're starting to get into the nuances of nutrition and the different food groups and stuff, but overall, that's the lens that's always looked at, is through there and has been. So it's interesting, in this article, which again, it's about 16 different contributors, including Gary Taubes. One of the professors, I'm going to actually look at a few notes here because I'm going to read from the article. I don't normally read when I'm doing these things, but I just don't want to misquote it. David Ludwig, so he's a professor at the Harvard Medical School, states obesity is not an energy balance disorder, but a hormonal or constitutional disorder, a dysregulation in fat storage and metabolism, a disorder of fuel partitioning. In other words, he's saying it is not just about calorie in, calorie out. It's actually what's happening regarding the hormones and the metabolism that cause the body to be very prone to storing fat and hanging on to it and not wanting to burn it. That's what he means by fuel partitioning. So the reason I like to share this is because and I know I personally went through this where in the past where you're doing all the right stuff, and you're kind of eating well and you're targeting and you're keeping your calories lower than what your body's burning and all that, but getting no results. Well, likelihood is that because there's actually an energetic imbalance, an hormonal imbalance that is contributing to your body preferentially wanting to hang on to fat. So that was my own personal experience, like from 8 years ago when I ran into my challenges and I was meticulous and I was doing everything right and it was not budging. I just knew something was wrong. And I hear this from a lot of people. I mean, there's some where they have more challenges around and they know they're overeating and all this kind of stuff, but there's some where they are very, they said, Dr. Cher, if you saw what I ate, like it makes no sense. Like, why am I not losing weight? Well, it's because of this underlying mechanism. And the challenge is the research, when it's only looking at things, and this is, can happen in any form of research, we get hooked into an overarching dogma without sometimes taking a step back, going, maybe there's an initial assumption here that's being made that isn't quite right. Anyway, so the historical thing is interesting, is that this was done, this research, initial research around this, looking at it more like there's something going on internally in the body that then is causing the body to store fat. It's actually increasing appetite, is causing, people, and even in the earlier stages, the research they did with rats is causing them to overeat. It's an internal dysregulation. So it's kind of like, which came first, chicken or the egg, right? Anyway, so this research was initially being done in the 30s. So you had two kind of theories. In Europe, it was more they were looking at the internal dysregulation. In North America, it was more the calorie in, calorie out thing. Well, then we had World War II. So a lot of the research in Europe stopped. And then the calorie in, calorie out, the energy imbalance, that became sort of the dominating theory for years and years. But now we're finding more and more they're starting to look at things, and also with technology, they can do more interesting research to pick up on what's actually causing it. Because getting it to the underlying cause. The challenge is that the calorie in, calorie out, it simplifies things too much. Secondly, it's really this is a bit of the cause of the fat shaming that happens. It's putting the onus on the person. Well, if they would just eat less or exercise more. And so it's putting it into almost the psychological or the behavioral realm, that there's something wrong with them. And there's one of this is actually a quote from 1954, when Gary's, doing the historical research. When the Harvard nutritionist Jean Mayer wrote in 1954, to attribute obesity to overeating is as meaningful as to account for alcoholism by ascribing it to overdrinking, right? Like, obviously we know alcoholism, overdrinking, okay, that's almost like the symptom of what's underneath. Likewise, the obesity. Maybe they are overeating, maybe they're not, but it has to do with the underlying mechanism. So, it's important to look and think about that weight loss. It can be more of a hormonal imbalance, not just the calorie in, calorie out theory. Now, the key hormone here in all of this is insulin. So we tend to think of insulin as, it just helps to manage blood sugar levels. But the problem is insulin goes up and stays up. It is the culprit, so to speak. And what it does is it also stimulates the uptake of fat into the fat cells. So the fat cells are getting bigger. It also inhibits the release of the fat from the fat cells. So, because fat can be broken down and released from cells and used for fuel, but when insulin's high, it will stop that. In fact, one of the lines here, again, I'm going to read, it stated that no tissue in the body is as sensitive to insulin's action as fat tissue. It is exquisitely sensitive. So it's a bit of a catch-22, right? Insulin goes up, accumulation of fat causes, and then as insulin stays high, the fat it's just going to really hang on to it. So if you're somebody who's struggled with this, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You're like, I do everything, my body's not responding. So the good news is that there's ways to get around this, and ways to get around this naturally. And this is certainly what helped me 8 years ago, once I discovered sort of the world of ketosis and intermittent fasting. So this means ketosis is where people using it, you can use intermittent fasting. There's also the ketogenic diet, which takes a lot more managing. I find the fasting is much simpler for many people and very effective. Using that, what happens is you bring that insulin hormone, because of the timing and what you're eating and the amounts and everything, you're getting insulin down, you're keeping it low, so you're not bringing blood sugar levels up. As insulin stays low for a long enough period of time, that impact that it's having on the fat cells is gone. So finally, the body can then start to pull the fat out of the fat cells because it needs it for fuel. And that is a fundamental difference than the calorie in, calorie out theory. So keep that in mind for somebody that's struggling. Then looking at a totally different approach for weight loss undoubtedly will probably be the solution for you. So I'm really excited to share that. The link for the actual article, if you want to read it, is below. And it's a great article, a little heavy duty on the science, but nonetheless, I think the historical perspective and seeing the progression of, little peaks of interest and research in around this, theory of fat accumulation and hormones that would sort of over the decades has emerged, but would kind of fall under the wing of calorie in, calorie out again. But now they're really starting to ramp up this research, which is very exciting. It's going to help a lot of people. Okay, so enjoy the article, and I'll be back. Take care.